we go. It normally takes like a minute and a half to send out a going live notification because we love twitch.tv. I say sarcastically.
Yes.
Yeah, I realize that, I mean, you're probably not super familiar with like a lot of the streaming stuff.
Not any, hardly?
Yeah. So I know that Techno streamed on YouTube, so
Yes.
which
Yes.
lately is starting to look like the move. Twitch is an interesting platform, I say, as I get ready to stream on Twitch.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
also,
it looks like...
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go, because I was going to change the subject.
Oh, I was just going to say hello to people who are coming in and saying hello to you and
Hello,
I.
people.
I'm very. Oh wait, here, really quickly. If you need some inspiration, why don't you quickly follow me this way? I can show you some other things that I have been working on over here.
Ooh.
If you, so here's the thing. What?
Did I lose you? I glanced away from the screen for a second. There you are.
Yeah. So, as far as building goes, I really like to take very non-traditional approaches. I like to approach it very much like an artistic process. So mostly what we're going to be doing today is like taking a look at like, this is going to sound weird, okay? But like the type of shapes you like. Like, I know that sounds weird. Like shapes and colors first is like the first things that we choose, and then we go from there. Because like I personally like very organic shapes. So I like roundness, and you can kind of tell that by how I do my like roofs and stuff like that. So it'll be fun. Trust me. It's been a while since I've taught someone to build, so I'm a little bit rusty, and by a little bit I mean very, but...
That is totally no problem, and I like to think I have a pretty good spatial sense.
That is the most important thing you need, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really am quite baffled by how colors work in Minecraft. And
What do you mean by that? Can I ask?
well, so by default, when my experience, my subjective experience, when I run, just fire up Minecraft.
Also, hi chat. I appreciate you.
There's like a million billion different blocks, and they range in color from like dark brown to light brown.
Yeah.
And people who are familiar with the game look at it and go, "Oh, that's oak, and that one there is, whatever." But that's completely different. That's dirt, and it's like, okay, so brown, and brown is what I'm seeing.
Yes.
So I like this delightful transparent roof that you have put on this thing has, blues and greens in it, which is lovely and also very artistically, that's what the word I want, architecturally pleasing. This building is architecturally pleasing.
Thank you. This is supposed to be a train station because I really like trains.
It definitely has that vibe.
Yeah. So here, wait, why don't we go back over here? And we can start looking through the creative menu. They actually very recently redid how they organize the creative menu. And I think you'll like it because it's a little bit more color orientated. So it's like, here, I'll take a look. Even I'm still getting used to it as somebody who's been building in Minecraft for years and professionally building. I am not at all like familiar with this, but now they have a whole section just called colored blocks. So...
Very nice.
If you're into colors, and then the building blocks, they sort it by like wood types. And I think we're saying that there's like a lot of browns, but
right.
You're distracted by the dog.
Is that a dog?
Well, it's a wolf.
But
You'd have to give it bones for it to be a dog.
I'm hearing a meow. Is that
Oh.
your kitty or is that in the game?
Yes, this is, well, both. This is Soupy.
Hello, Soapy.
Soupy is my IRL cat too.
Meow meow.
And she's much fatter than this though. probably more like
more
a
rounded.
yeah. She's a little bit more She's more like a block wide. I don't really know how to say. Look, she's trying to take after her old man. Her old man is like huge, you know.
Yeah.
She wants to be just like her dad, who is like we literally call him Big Guy, and he's just a big cat.
Yeah.
Okay, but I was off topic. I was talking about colorful blocks. So like these two are fairly new wood types. This is the one that was added just in the newest version, 1.20. And it is the new cherry wood. So I mentioned, you said you like pink, so
Yes.
and then this was added in, I think, 1.19. This is mangrove wood. So there are fun colors you can work with. I guess the thing is, like, you just take a look through your menu, and I just want you to like pull out blocks that like kind of catch your eye, and then we can work from there. In like the building world, we have this thing called block palettes, which is basically how we refer to like. It's just a palette of blocks, basically.
Sure.
Okay, one second.
Sure.
My chat's telling you I gotta turn you up. So 1 second. I gotta do that real quick before I forget.
I can turn me up too. I mean, I haven't done a levels check.
Well, that was my bad. I probably should have done that
Okay.
beforehand. But as we said, we aren't very prepared people.
Yeah. I really need to get a levels meter or something, but what I've got is a little light, and it turns red if I'm over volume.
Well, hopefully, I normally just let my chat be my little level thing, and then they'll tell me when I'm over volume.
Yeah. All right. Well, when I laughed, my little light turned all red, so I'm gonna go back down just a little bit.
No problem.
All right. How's
You
how
sound,
are they feeling now?
they're saying thank you, so I'm
to
assuming
hear.
that's a good thing.
Sounds like.
Yeah, so anyways, like I said, just go through, pull out some blocks you like. I'll do the same thing just so I could give you like a little example, you know?
This is so sweet. Sniff love.
Thank you so much for the 4 months.
So I got red, orange, yellow, green.
Like,
Blue.
is it mostly like the wool blocks that you like? Because here's the thing is like, yes, so like these are both red blocks, right? Oh wait, you're still in your menu?
Yes.
Okay, so like these are both red blocks, but it's kind of like by laying out the blocks next to each other, you can kind of see how they work together, you know? So like the red wool is very vibrant, and like the mangrove and the terracotta tend to work pretty well together because they're both like not as vibrant, but also vibrant colors are great too. But if you like really vibrant reds, then a really good one would be red nether bricks, which are these very like deep, also have a really good sound to them.
Those are the ones on top there?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are pretty.
So you're more of like a red person. Okay, I'll keep this in mind. What about like stones? Like, are there any like the stones that you like?
In terms of how they look?
Yes. I can pull out a few as well.
Well, you know, the basic grass block is fairly attractive. Blue ice, sandstone, I would say.
Sandstone. Okay. Like the red
But that's-
sandstone or?
That's not very. What do I want to say? Sandstone's not very structurally sound.
Well, luckily, this is a game where you can do whatever you want. So,
That's pretty.
yes, this is. Oh, I can't even pronounce it, but this was added in the Nether update, which is they also added. Oh, actually, you might like this. They added 2 different types of woods in the Nether update. Here, I'll pull these out because they're very, very cool color.
Ooh.
Yeah. Thank you,
Wow,
Pixie,
your
for the tier
red's better
1.
than my red.
Well, I mean, it's all about using them together, right? Like,
Yes.
so that's kind of the point. I like this purple block though that you chose.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that we
Yeah,
have something a little bit going here with colors. You're a very colorful person, I can tell.
Yes.
Which is good. I do think that, like, you know, especially using a lot of like the nether blocks here. I'm just going to place some next to each other. Okay, so like then this. And for stones, I know that, you'll probably want something that's like a little bit on the darker side to sort of contrast with all this color.
Right.
And so the two dark stones are black stone, which has these sort of like deep blue undertones, and then deep slate, which is very like monochromatic. So this is black stone, is like, you see it's like a little bit rough and it looks slightly blue. And then there's deep slate, which is very, very gray.
Wow, we slam.
Okay, so
it's
right.
you kind of just, I normally just like, yeah. So that's also black stone.
That's blackstone. And the other one you mentioned was deep slate.
Yeah.
Which I'm trying to find on the menu. Wow, that's a lot of stones.
And the nice thing about stones is they normally make like a lot of like parts for them. Like they make like the walls and the stairs and stuff like that. And that's where like you can really add intricate build details, is with like the walls and the stairs. So that's why I normally try to incorporate at least one stone into my build. Also, because I like to build my foundations out of stone, because it's like, you know, sort of realistic.
Makes a lot of sense to me. Deep slate, there it is. Found it. Oh, you're right about the sound.
I know, the sound is really good. So I guess it's just a matter of which one you like more, and maybe how it looks in comparison to all the blocks we've kind of poked at.
Yeah, I've said as a base block, I would say the slate is my favorite so far.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So now I'm just going to move some of these. I'm going to organize all these blocks over here to the side.
Yeah.
Now, there's this thing that you'll probably really like. It makes building so much easier, and this is why we make physical palettes. But if you look at a block and you if you press on your middle mouse, like your scroll wheel, it'll pick the block for you, and I'll put it in your hand.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know this.
I see what you're saying. So that's the whole palette thing. You can just look at something and now you've got it.
Yeah, and it's like, it's really helpful if like you don't want to just endlessly scroll through your creative menu, you know, like.
Yes.
And there's always there is a search bar in the menu if you need it. So here, I'll now use my pick block to very quickly move everything over here. And then we can get started on a silly little shape. So for shapes, are you more of like, do you like very like geometric things? Do you like very like round things? I don't know what to like. What shapes are aesthetically pleasing to you, I guess, is the conversation.
Rectangles in the golden ratio are aesthetically pleasing.
I'm going to say something
are
really
we talking about
stupid, but what is the golden ratio again?
The golden ratio is a ratio that pops up in architecture a lot. The Greeks were really into it. It's the ratio of like the size of a playing card.
Oh. Okay. Wait, I'm curious, because maybe that is something that we can just incorporate for fun.
Yeah, so like if none of your buildings are visible, but I mean, instinctively when you make a rectangular building, right, it's a little, longer than it is wide. And so.
Oh, wait. Yeah, I've seen this chart before. I don't know why I completely forgot about it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think we could definitely like try to incorporate like that sort of scale. Aside from that, like, are you like a triangle person? So other than rectangles, like, I'm trying to think. Do you like more?
Are we talking like architectural features or just straight geometry?
Both. Because that's the fun part, is obviously in Minecraft, you don't need to adhere to any rules, So it's like.
Yes. Yes. Okay. I'm going to just free associate and say, cave entrances crystals.
Oh, you like crystals? Wait, sorry.
Crystals are cool.
You will like this then. Because you chose that lovely little purple block, and
Yes.
there is amethyst blocks in this game.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. So
All
one
right.
thing that I've
So
seen
we get-
before that like people have done is like they'll make amethyst roofs. So it's like, you'll like kind of make, okay, let's like pretend this is like a little round roof or something like that. And,
Yeah.
then you just like, you can add all these like clusters and it kind of makes it look like it's growing or something like that. I've seen that done pretty well before.
I love the
Also,
sound.
I know the sound is so perfect. Also, thank you so much for whoever subscribed. Yeah,
I can't.
I could place these for days. I'll be honest. It's just so good. What?
There we go.
Yeah, that sound and Deep Slate are definitely two of my favorite sounds in the entire game.
I love it. And we got a little Steven Universe vibe going with the amethyst.
Yes, I agree. Which I think is very fitting. Somebody says to walk on the amethyst? Oh, it does make very faint, like I've never noticed that before. Yeah, and so another thing that's really cool is like then you can also add like purple stained glass and kind of maybe like sort of add the illusion of like bigger crystals. That's something I've done as well.
Sniff cozy.
Like your transparent roof at the
Yes.
train station.
Yeah. So I like the sort of vibe we've got going here. So okay,
I do too.
aside from that, do you want to try? I'm trying to think about how we can, incorporate these ideas. So we have crystals. You said you like cave like sort of vibes.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to sound a little odd, but what if we built a house that was sort of like a geode cluster?
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And big. Can we go big? I want
Yes,
to go big.
we could. One thing is I do have world edit in here, which is very helpful for creating like certain structures very quickly. So I guess the first part would be to make I don't know is it like, what are they, wait 1 second. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna look this up before I absolutely butcher the pronunciation. There's a, what's the word for like the base of the geo where it's connected to the rock?
Oh, I sure don't know.
I'm sure there's somebody very smart in chat who knows, because there always is. What I'm literally thinking about is like, so this is gonna sound weird, but in Animal Crossing, they have like this little, like, here, I'm gonna like literally look it up and then send it to you. But they have like, basically it's like, actually, I can't because I have you on the screen, but it's like a little rock and then they just have like the little geodes coming out of it. That's like literally how I view it. Or have you ever played Stardew Valley before?
I haven't.
Oh, that's so sad.
I know.
You would love that game. It's so relaxing. I definitely recommend it. But they also sort of have.
Is that a phone game or a desktop game, or how does that work?
I believe it's both, actually. I believe that they have made it on iOS and on PC. Though I really recommend PC or like anything with a controller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I don't want to.
Somebody said they think it's called a stem. I think that sounds kind of familiar. So something that I think would be cool is first we have to build the sort of stone base. Now, this is kind of one of those moments where like, do you want it to be just kind of like a lump of rock and then we build out from it? Or do you want it to be more organized than that?
My first thought is we start with a slab as a foundation.
Okay. Like,
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, it's fair to say that I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm just using, analogy with other things to try to figure out what's the right way to go.
Well,
But if I were building a house, I'd start with a slab.
can I tell you a secret?
Yeah, please.
I don't know what I'm doing.
I love that.
I like literally never know. It's just like I people all the time. They're like, "Oh, Sniff, like you used to be a professional builder. Like you must be so good at building." I'm like, I literally never know what I'm doing. I'm just not afraid to revise. So I think that's sort of it.
What
All
is
right.
this structure right here, by the way?
Oh, okay. So we didn't end up using this, but this is sort of a little tradition that I have with my chat where sometimes when we do builds, I just use it to write down stuff, but like in game, you are stuck in the snow.
I see that.
That was very rude of the snow, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, so like I try to keep all of my organized thoughts in the game itself, because if I write it down on a piece of paper, I'm going to lose it. So sometimes like there was a time when I was actually like studying a lot of the builds that were made on the Dream SMP and stuff like that. And because I didn't know much about it at the time, I mostly relied on my chat to tell me like what like certain people's characteristics were, or what they liked, or what their pre-existing homes were like. And so then I would write down those ideas to sort of incorporate into the build.
Neat.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like how I do that with almost like anything I build, honestly. But slab time.
Why don't we start with a big old slab? So is there a way to make it all at once, or
I guess
we
it's
just
like
go nuts splicing
what slab shape are you thinking?
Can we do a circle?
Yes, we can.
I mean, a rectangle seems kind of
So
dull.
here, I think we can. This is the beautiful thing that is World Edit.
Yep.
But I believe I can do /BRS, and then I will make it out of the black stone.
Okay.
Or no, you said you like the deep slate.
I like the deep slate.
Yeah, we'll use deep slate then. And then actually, I think I want to make it a cylinder. If I do that first, and then
Okay.
Okay. I believe if I put this down, we'll start.
Woo! Look at that.
I think I could make it a little bit bigger though.
I was gonna say bigger.
Now, this is my slightly special talent is that I'm pretty good at just making circles in Minecraft on my own.
Cool.
But that's just because I like to build circular
12
things a
months
lot.
of silliness. 3.
Thank you so much, Jamie.
So do you want me to like fill it in?
Yeah, go ahead. That'd be
I'm
perfect.
always doing that.
And I'm just gonna try to also make sure it's all even on every side and stuff like that, the whole business. And something that could be cool is we could create like a little bit of a gradient with our little rock. By like adding in different textures and stuff like that, which might be more realistic because real rocks have sort of different variations. That is also something I should mention. I really do love to like, I do, as much as I don't mind like building like fantasy stuff, I do like to take inspiration from like, real stuff when it comes to builds, because I think that it can help with the project flow.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, I've never really necessarily built a giant rock that we're then going to build crystals out of. So, so this is our slab, I guess, right?
Yay.
So, is this
Yeah.
big enough, or do you need it? Do you need it bigger?
This is good.
Okay, cool.
This is good. I like this.
Let me get out some more deep slate. Oh gosh, for some reason I can't see my mouse on my Minecraft, which is very annoying. But okay, let me grab some different variations of deep slate. And so are you thinking about like a dome, or do you want it to just trying to think about how to do this. Dome?
A partial, like, dome-esque, but not a straight up dome. It should have a big cave mouth opening and be all sparkly on the inside, like a geode.
Yeah, I agree. So like maybe like a little bit of some like wall to it. We do have to build this while keeping the inside hollow, which is going to be fun.
Right.
And I'm just gonna, like, I'm holding different kinds of deep slate, and something that I kind of do is I will put different kinds of blocks in my inventory. And I'll just kind of scroll like a little slowly as I'm placing to kind of give it some texture variation, which just kind of can make things a little bit more, you know, as you can see it, like, it makes it more aesthetically pleasing in that it's like, it's not just one flat texture.
It's not, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we'll build this up so that, you know, there's a little bit of breathing space when you come in here. I'm also very excited to see how we're going to implement like windows and stuff like that into this. Of course, they could just be little cave holes too, which is part of the fun. I do like the idea of a giant geode though. I'm glad that you mentioned that you like crystals. Are you a big fan of like collecting like crystals or rocks IRL at all?
Not really. A little bit, I guess. I'm more like pick up a rock as I'm going on a walk and saying, that is really interesting. Kids, look at this.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. I think that like, especially when it comes to like picking up rocks from around you, it is a really good way to learn about like, I don't know, like local geology. Because I'm sure like, I mean, I think it's more interesting also when you go to like other places, because obviously any rock I pick off the ground in the West Coast is going to be very different from what I pick up in the East Coast, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, every time I fly to the West Coast, I'm always thinking about the Rocky Mountains because they're very different from the sort of mountain range that, like, because I'm near the Appalachian Mountains, and they're very, very old, you know? So they're much, like, smoother and not as harsh looking. Okay, so now I think we can start the very slow descent dome up process. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Building circles and like domes in Minecraft is like a very hard thing to learn. But it's all about like symmetry. So I guess we could just try and mirror each other and see if that works.
Okay.
So if you want to go,
is there, if I wanted to place, so as we're bending inward here, I'm not clear on the block placement rules. Like, can I just fly up into the air and place a block like right in front of me? I can't, can I?
No, it has to be attached to another block. So sometimes what's going to happen is you are going to need to place a block just to break it, just to like...
Oh, right. Of course, that's an option.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that.
I do that quite a bit. And let me get... I'm going to give you a slab because this is a half block. And this will like help with... Oh, it just fell. But like this can help us like kind of create a slower descent towards the top. And that's kind of how you create that illusion of roundness.
Uh-oh. Is that...
Did it just disappear?
I don't have it.
Here. Yeah. I'll place it and then you can block pick it. How about that?
That sounds good.
Okay.
How do I clear out my inventory? Because I got all 10 slots.
I got you. So you open your inventory and you click survival inventory, right? Which is the little chest in the bottom.
There it is. Aha.
And then you press the shift button and well, you can either drag things individually into the destroy item category or you can press shift and then click the destroy item.
Look at that.
Yeah.
And then the X takes, no, that's X is, okay, so how do I go back to creative inventory?
Just click on any of the tabs.
Click on any of the tabs, it looks like.
Yeah.
I figured it out.
Yeah, no, you got this. You're already a pro, literally.
Look at that. This is a lot like Lego.
Yes, it is. Which makes Minecraft tutorials very satisfying to watch because it's like watching someone assemble Legos. You know, I actually this is a funny little anecdote, but I did a Minecraft Lego collab about a year ago. Because believe it or not, Minecraft and Lego are very happy business partners. Because they do share quite an audience. And they released a bunch of new sets last year, and so I was able to do like a really cool collaboration with them where I worked with a Lego builder, and I built half of a build in Minecraft and he built half of it with Lego, and then they like edited them together.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I think Minecraft is like, I love Minecraft creative building. I feel like it doesn't get a lot of like, I don't think it gets as much love because it's like, you know, just a whole different section of the game. But I still think it is very much so like important for like creativity, especially childhood creativity. Because I guess
I
ahead.
loved Legos growing up. I was a huge Lego fan.
Yeah, these were my Legos. Legos were too expensive for me as a child. So I think you know, my really crappy laptop and Minecraft were kind of what substituted for that. So I'm just very, this is just me sort of naturally doing a slow build in. This part is very hard, so I apologize. It might be a little bit confusing, but basically I'm just very slowly creeping in the first layer here. Now, the thing about circles is when I'm building circles in Minecraft, I always just think about exponents. In that, like, an exponential curve, you make exponential curves happen because they, like, slowly descend in, like, how the slope slowly goes down.
Yes.
So I start with, like, 2 blocks in the first layer, and then I'll go 1 block on the second layer, and then half a slab. Oh, I just knocked over something. Like half a slab on that layer, and that's sort of how I create the illusion of a curve in a game that has no curves.
Great. Yes. That's what you have to do, right?
Yeah. So here, I will create the first layer, and then if you want to just add like another block on top of it, that would be the best way to help. So like what I mean by that is like increasing this up to 2 blocks.
I got that, but I was also trying to be a little ambitious and
well, I'm all for that if you want to try that.
Match you.
No, I believe you. Actually, I'd rather you do that because I don't know your comfort zone. Everyone has different comfort zones when it comes to building and creative things in general. So
okay, so you had oops, I'm not flying there now. I'm flying again.
I just realized that this was actually like that. Yes, that's another thing is I constantly am checking myself too, you know? Like I gotta check my work. It's even more difficult in survival because, you know, obviously in creative you can like fly up and look at it from different angles and
right.
But when you're building in survival, it's a little bit more tricky.
Okay, so I was just able to successfully place 4 blocks to match your.
I mean, that's
4 blocks on one side to match your.
That's still good. So, like I said, this will be kind of the most awkward part of the build, and then once it comes to like doing the more creative stuff, that's like not creative, the more like decorative stuff. That's when it gets like a little bit more like freeing, and you can kind of go a little bit crazy. I think you'll probably really like building these the crystals that I'm thinking about. Are you
The
okay?
kitty. Yes, I'm just laughing at the kitty.
Look, she's essential, okay?
Oh no, totally. I love the kitty.
I would go grab her in real life, but I'm sure she's sleeping. That's all she does.
Yeah.
Well, it takes a lot of effort to get that chubby. It takes a lot of work, okay? Like
It does. It does indeed.
it takes like a lot of eating wet food, a lot of like can't discredit her work.
Right.
I'm actually going to change an aspect of this, so just give me a second. Okay, now we'll keep building. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this to be like this. And then now we go in another block. And then this is going to be the one that's sort of like only 1 block tall. As part of my exponential explanation.
Gotcha.
I don't know if you're much of a math guy.
I am much of a math guy.
Did you ever this I promise there's a reason for this question. Did you ever do anything competitively with math?
Yes, I did.
Thank God. I'm not alone. My chat likes to bully me because I was a mathlete, as they were called.
Yeah, I don't know how old that program is, but when I was in high school, which of course was rather a long time ago, there was, I guess it's still there, this thing called the academic decathlon.
Yes, I have heard of that.
So I was on my high school's academic decathlon team.
Yeah, that is that is quite nerdy, I'm not gonna lie. But also
Yes.
I get that because I was the mathlete's kid. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I always did well on those things, relatively speaking, because there was a lot of it was like based on where you were, where your grades were, and my grades were never very good because I didn't care very much about grades per se, but I thought math was cool, so I did particularly well as far as relative to my grades.
yeah, I get that though. I was not a very big actually, I will correct that. I did care about my grades quite a bit, but I will also say my school had a very different system in comparison to most American schools, which I think made learning a lot more interesting. We did what is called a skill-based learning system. So we still obviously learned stuff like history and, science facts. But what we ended up getting graded on was our ability to analyze and our ability to find evidence and our ability. So like, it was more so like what we were graded on was the skills that are in relation to learning as opposed to the material we're learning. But obviously they tend to coincide. So.
Right.
Which I think is very interesting because I do think it honestly set me up to be quite different in how I approach learning today, because as someone who's not very good at memorizing things, I more so look at it based off of like the skills, and I do think that was pretty neat. I am very happy that I had that opportunity, but not many American schools do that, unfortunately. So.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So how's this dome looking? Is this doming correctly?
Great.
I think so too. I'm very excited. So basically we're just going to create the whole dome first, and then we'll go back and we'll like break the holes for the entrance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'm actually just going to fill in this top bit. Actually, do you want there to be like a little like skylight maybe?
Yeah, but not dead center. Let's do it like a little to the side.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like that idea.
Because we can't be slavishly symmetric. We have to have some asymmetries
Yes, I agree with
to
that.
keep it interesting.
I think sometimes people get a little bit, at least with my Minecraft builds, they always see the asymmetry and they're like, what's going on there? And I'm like, just trust the process, you know?
Yeah, well, I think there's a different. I think at different stages in one's life, different aesthetic principles work differently, and I feel like when we're young, symmetry is just a big deal. It's just huge.
Yeah, symmetry is safe.
Right. And it's accessible and beautiful, and it's a guiding principle, and so forth. And then I remember, being a high school student and seeing asymmetric things or things where the structure was irregular, like that castle Neuschwanstein. It just looks, weird because of all the bizarre asymmetries and so forth. And in poetry, I think of Xanadu by Coleridge. That poem in Xanadu.
I think, yeah, I do actually.
A stately pleasure dome decree. Hey, we're building a stately pleasure dome, aren't we? Or dome, anyway. That was not intentional. Anyway,
look, it's
that
got
poem.
A geode.
It's a geode, yeah. Like when I was in high school, that poem drove me nuts. I hated it because it's so irregular. And then as I got older, it became one of my favorite poems because it's so irregular.
I think that's interesting because I'm quite the opposite. I have always been sort of drawn to asymmetry, because I think a lot of that has to do with like I sort of have this constant theme in my life of industrial versus natural. Like because especially like I mean think about like my sort of generation, anyone who's like in their early 20s, like we're like the generation of kids that still grew up playing outside, like without technology, but then came inside to our iPads at one point in our life or whatever,
Right, yeah.
Like, and so it's always this sort of thing for me. It's like, what is, because I view symmetry as very like technical and like more machine-like, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, to clarify. So
yes.
When I think like my love for asymmetry comes from my love for nature, which is can be symmetric in some ways, but also asymmetric.
So I'm not sure what I was expecting for today, but I know I was not expecting erudite discussion of aesthetics.
Well, I was expecting that. I like to talk about, I mean, this is like, I'm not much, look. I'm not Tommy in it. I will not be screaming in your ear, but this is definitely the sort of conversations that I have almost daily. This is how I think, and so a lot of my build process is always just me thinking out loud, and I think that's why a lot of people enjoy it, because it's like a podcast or a conversation.
Yeah. Well, I'm having a great time, and I'm certainly appreciating your perspective.
Well,
because that's very.
We're about to have an even better time because we're gonna build some crystals.
Righteous.
Now, speaking of asymmetry, this is where it's going to get a little bit fun, because as we build the crystals that are sort of coming out of the top of this guy, they don't really need to be any specific shape. I mean, a little bit straight, but other than that, they can kind of do whatever. I mean, because amethyst will grow at an angle. And here, actually, I'll be right back. I'm just going to grab something real quick, because I realize that I have some amethyst. So I mentioned that I asked if you collected crystals at all. And the reasoning for that is because I do. Because I'm like, ooh, shiny rock, you know, like. And I do like to bring IRL references sometimes into my build. And something that's sort of interesting about amethyst is that at the base, it sort of starts out lighter and then gets progressively darker as it reaches its sort of like points, its natural points. So that is something that we could try to implement if we so choose.
Neat.
And I think the way that would be the best to do this would be to get some glass, and I'll get some white glass, and then I'll do like a sort of gradient, I think, between, if I do white, magenta, and then purple. I don't know where you are. Just appeared.
To your left. Oh,
This looked like an interesting gradient.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I think we can start by using these sort of amethyst real crystals at the base, and then sort of implementing. What I'll do is I'll just kind of mix blocks a lot, and it looks a bit chunky sometimes, but honestly, that's just sort of the nature of Minecraft. So here, I'll make a.
Ugh.
Were you okay? Did you accidentally break it?
I accidentally broke it.
There you go. I wish there was an undo button, but unfortunately there isn't.
Yeah.
When is Minecraft gonna let me control Z, you know, like... Hey, I mean, if they did do that, I would honestly be so happy. All right, so here's my little test. I don't know if this is sort of what I'm trying to understand for what you're going for, but just like I don't know what they're called. They're like the naturally forming spikes.
Wow.
Oh, wait, and then I just realized, I think that if we do frog lights, yes. There's these, I know
Did
that's...
you say frog lights?
Yes, there's these thing called frog lights, and they have a sort of interesting, you know, color to them. Like there's, it's hard to see. I have shaders on, so my poor chat cannot see, but they have different colors. They have yellow and green. Oh, don't mind that. But they have like a slightly different hues to them, and so you can kind of add in some frog lights if you want it to be a little bit luminescent.
Yeah, well, I think the interior of our structure needs something like that, don't you think? Because it's...
Yeah, and what's cool is we can kind of, when we get to the interior here, we can definitely have like the crystals sort of poking through a bit, and like, I believe that the amethyst clusters glow slightly too. The little tiny blocks that attach onto the amethyst. They make such a good noise. I can't get over that. Yeah, so I'll just let you try. Like I said, I used a gradient of white, magenta, and purple, and then I just inserted those amethyst blocks kind of into the middle to give it a little bit more solidness. But I'll just let you have a go at it, and I'll just build some more pillars. Little clusters. Now, I believe that amethyst is a type of quartz. I'm not so sure about that, though. I think it is. At least how it grows. I know it's considered a mineral, not a gemstone, I think. I'm a big fan of amethyst, but that's mostly because it is the February birthstone, and I am born in February.
Mm.
Okay. I think I'm going to make some of these, like, I think I'm going to make a little bit of a thicker one towards the middle. Just for some, like, variation. Oh, see, this is why I do also love talking about informative topics sometimes, because then I have
Yes.
people who chime in on my chat who let me know amethyst is a type of quartz, which is a silicate. Silicate? I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm familiar with that family though. Okay, I'm thinking I'm gonna make this a little bit taller. I'm just going for it. What?
I am having fun.
Okay, well that's good. It would be really awkward if you weren't. I'd have to start doing like a silly dance or something. I don't know. I don't know how to make people have fun other than just like chatting, so I'm not much of a class clown type.
Ah,
Yeah, I've come to learn that most of my humor just comes from saying things that I don't expect to be oddly timed, but apparently just are. So. I want to see how this looks from. Oh, this is a little funky guy. You know what this sort of reminds me of with the white that sort of. There's a type of amethyst called chevron amethyst, and it's a little bit more opaque, but it has these like white stripes that go through it in a chevron pattern, which I think is very interesting. Kind of reminds me of yours that you just built right there.
mm-hmm.
Sorry, I like how silly it looks in a good way.
Yes.
And see, that's the fun part about, I guess, building like more organic things is that it can just really be something kind of silly. I must say, I do like how this is going to sort of come together, I think. And then for the inside, do you want there to be like almost like a coat of amethyst? Like,
Yes, but I mean, it should definitely be irregular.
yeah. I wish I could show you what if there was like a way to easily locate one, I would show you how the geodes look in Minecraft, but they were implemented in the Caves and Cliffs update, and they basically are exactly what they are. They're giant geodes that you find in the earth, and it is one of the coolest things I think they've ever added. It's because nothing's like better than when you're just having a fun little mining trip, which can sometimes be very stressful depending on whether or not you like monsters. And then there's just a little tiny ball of amethyst. The chat says that it looks very pretty. I'm curious what you are doing right here.
I am thinking that we need a light well.
Like a spot where some light comes into the geode?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you
Just
like right here?
Maybe not. Yeah, like inside.
I don't know how the lighting looks to you. I unfortunately have shaders on, which is not very unfortunate, but that's because it's just Minecraft moment for me. But do you want it like to be very slim, or do you want it to be more in the rock itself?
Kind of like this.
Okay,
Well, now we.
I can
got a
fix
bunch
this.
of-
Well, I didn't know. Okay, I didn't know if you wanted. I didn't know how large you wanted it. So
Yeah. Something like that.
okay. I do like that you kind of look up into the jewel. It's not jewel. I'm correcting myself. The crystal itself.
Yes.
And we could definitely like add lanterns and stuff in there. It doesn't need to be perpetually dark. unless that's what you're going for, then.
I like the idea of... Oh, that's nice. I'm just looking at it from a distance for perspective.
Yep, that's always good. I do that with my art in real life. Sometimes you gotta like walk. Sometimes I like will put it outside and I will just. Yeah, see, this is why I think flying in real life would be really, applicable. Because otherwise, what I normally do is I just will put it on the grass and then walk away from it, a good couple of meters. But at least in Minecraft, I can fly, so.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting connections between like building in Minecraft and like how we approach art in real life. And I think that's why a lot of people I know who like to do art are also very attracted to building in Minecraft. I'm honestly looking forward to the day that you figure out like there's a whole sort of side of Minecraft and like modifications that work on like kind of making the game into something a little bit more cinematic and like like camera controls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I always think like, oh yeah, that would probably be something that you'd be interested in.
Yes.
Yeah, someone in chat said, imagine how easy it'd be to get different perspectives for reference if you could fly IRL. Yeah, I wish. Though I think that would be very dangerous. Do you think that if people could fly, like in real life, that we would have to get like flying license for people?
Not entirely. Although I have to say, somewhere online, I heard someone say that if we could fly in real life, we would consider it exercise and never do it.
That's probably true. Yeah. Because I mean, it does take like, an enormous amount of stamina for like birds, for example, to like continuously flap their wings. So if humans had like wings or something like that, also considering how much like our like main like body weighs, it probably would take a ridiculous amount of energy to fly. So I guess I never thought about that until now. So, which is funny because it's something that's like so simple, and it's like, oh, I should have just thought it like.
Yeah, it's one of those ideas that's obvious in retrospect.
I do think it's always fun to think about stuff like that, though, because then I also start to think about, like, oh, what sports do we have then if we could just...
Quidditch, I guess. Something like that. I feel like people would be much better three-dimensional thinkers if we could fly.
You know, I don't know if that would necessarily change. I'll be honest.
Maybe slightly better three-dimensional thinkers.
Yeah. I'm just really on autopilot building any amethyst, so if you need any help with anything, just let me know. Until then, I'm just going to be building these little crystal guys. Do you mind if I, like, build a little bit around your little light well?
No, not at all.
Okay. Just thought I'd ask. Just going to try to make it look a little bit less boxy.
Yeah.
It's okay. It happens. I think if you could see the first things that I built in Minecraft, you would go, oh, wow, that is certainly something. That is certainly something that a 12-year-old made.
Yes.
Oh, it looks really cool in here already with some of the crystals like that kind of break through the rock. Where are you? I realize that I've lost you now.
I'm running around the perimeter.
Do you need the cat to move?
I wouldn't mind the cat moving.
Okay.
How do I say here kitty kitty in Minecraft?
There. Oh, come on, Soup. Just like real life, she doesn't listen to me. Are you trying to build like a little amethyst wall?
Yeah.
Okay, here I'll break these little blocks then, so they don't have to be in your way.
It's more a decorative feature than.
It's like a frame for your art.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, don't worry, I got you. Here, I'm gonna start working on that more round entrance. It's such a good noise. I'll never get over how nice the noise is. They really did right with that. Game design is like one of my favorite things ever, so it is hard not to admire it so greatly when I see something like that, you know? Because I think it's like it's things such as like little sounds and stuff like that that I think make things more immersive.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a good round entrance for you?
Oh wow. Yes, it's lovely.
Awesome.
It's nice and airy inside now.
Yeah.
Although still unfurnished.
Now, as far as furnishing in Minecraft goes, there's not necessarily furniture in the game.
You got a bed and a ladder, and that's about it.
So you do kind of have to get a little creative, other than like the game mode. So I can show you some silly furnishings that I've learned how to make. For starters, there's always the classic couch. Okay.
Yes.
And this is what everyone knows how to make. You know, it's like, here, let me get the little frame. You know, little classic couch action.
Oh wow.
Yep.
How do you do that? So that's like.
So that's some stairs, and then a sign, and then you don't put anything on the sign. And you can kind of make it whatever shape you want. You know, you can have a little corner couch. You can make a conversation pit. You know,
the 1970s style sunken living room.
Yeah.
Fireplace in the middle.
My friend is very obsessed with conversation pits. So every time we play Minecraft together, I always see them make one.
That makes sense.
Another favorite of mine to do is a lamp. So I'm just going to pretend this is like a little table. So what I do is I put an end rod, and the end rod is actually the thing that illuminates, you know, the block. And then you can kind of use whatever block you want and pretend it's like a lampshade. So there's a purple lamp. Or my personal favorite is I take a little mushroom block and it's a little mushroom lamp.
Oh. That belongs in a museum.
And someone just mentioned to me that they actually very recently added the chiseled bookshelves, which like you add the books on manually.
Look at that.
Which is interesting. If you want to make a less full, you can grab them off too, which I think is very fun.
Is the book a separate item? How does that work?
Yes, it is. Here, I'll toss you some. If you can pick them up this time.
I did. I picked them up. So there's a bookshelf, and then
just like hold the book and right click it.
Right. Yeah, I can never do this right.
It's okay. Take your time.
Trying again.
So you have to look at the bookshelf and like where like yeah, there you go. Yeah, you got it.
They look a little like ice cream sandwiches.
You know, I didn't see that, but I do, you know? And then of course there's the already full bookshelves, which, you know, look like this. So you could like mix and match them. Let me think about other types of furniture that I, you know, kind of have to make. Of course, we can't forget our classic sink, you know? People will use a cauldron and then some water and then a lever. This is like me looking up how to make furniture in Minecraft. I'm just like 6 like levels of. There's your little sink. You look so perplexed by it.
It feels like something you would do laundry in more than something you would cook in.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I mean, look, we don't got a lot to work with here, okay? You know?
That's the sink. If you come in from the fields and you're all dirty and your mom says, no, go in this room first. And that's the sink in that room. And you're expected to wash your shoes off or something.
Here. And then this is, okay, so I'm going to show you 2 different fridges. There's one that like kind of everyone does, and then there's the one that I like to do. So this is like the classic fridge, right? Wait. No, it's then I go here and then, you know.
Yeah.
But I normally do this, which is 2 shulker boxes that are facing this way. And the reason why I do that, even though it doesn't look quite as fridge-like, is because you can open these guys.
Wow. I would like to get a fridge that the door opens that way.
Me too. I think that would be very interesting.
Wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be cool?
And then for like counters and stuff like that, I use beehives, which like I understand looks a little bit odd, but the reasoning for that is because they have like a very distinct separation between like the top half and like the lower half. So it kind of has like a counter vibe.
That's a beehive?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you see what I mean about shades of brown, right?
Yes.
Like crafting table? No, beehive.
I think they look really different. Is this your fridge?
Yes. It's just a lot of snow.
You know what? I respect it though.
Yes.
I get it.
Because it's really cold.
Here, I will add some counters. And you can always kind of if you want like a raised table, you could get a piston and then redstone block.
Is the sink, it's blinking red sometimes. Is that a warning light?
Yeah, the sink's gonna explode. No,
I thought it was.
That is like redstone particles.
Oh.
So yeah.
How does redstone work?
Now that is a loaded question. I can't even lie to you. I don't even know where to start. I'll be honest, I am not very well versed in Redstone, but there are a couple YouTubers out there who are, and I think that you would probably quite enjoy it based off of what I know of you. But it's also very complicated. But it's also cool because then you can start to make things like secret doors and,
Yeah.
mysterious things that.
I have to say I'm kind of interested in the idea of getting involved with writing software that creates Minecraft levels.
What do you mean by that? Can you like elaborate a bit more?
So, right now we're in a Minecraft level, right? And it's got some very cool buildings off in the distance, and it's got this geode right here, right? This is the environment we're in. So somewhere there's when the server exits, there's like a file that represents this world, right? And we created this world by starting with the generic. Well, you created it. I watched and I placed over a dozen different individual blocks. But so this was created by the default, create me a new level, and then it's been extensively modified by running around in the world and adding and subtracting blocks of different kinds at different positions.
Yeah.
So what if instead there was a program, like I wrote a program and you run the program and then that program creates a world.
Like a world generation thing?
Yes, exactly. Like a world generation thing, and then you could load that world up in Minecraft and run around in it and see things.
Yes, that is very much so possible. Actually, there is a modification called Open Terrain Generator. And I believe it's just like it is an open software, as you can tell by its name. And it does, I believe that is, like I said, an open software where you can use it to create your own, basically what you are describing, like your own, I guess, world data. Yeah, that is 100% doable, and I think very cool.
That seems pretty cool because it's like, a lot of the folks in the Minecraft world have spent years learning how to do Minecraft stuff, and I'm at close to zero. But
well, I'm personally a big believer in like you can start anything at any age.
Oh yeah, 100%. But one thing I do have a lot of experience with is writing software, and so.
Are you familiar with JavaScript?
Yes. More with Java than with JavaScript, but I'm certainly.
Well, I don't know if it's Java or JavaScript, I'll be honest.
I've certainly written JavaScript a fair bit. I've written a lot of Java.
Okay, I will say, and this is, I feel a little bit, sorry, chat, that you have to be subjected to our little nerdy chatting. But I do have a couple of friends who are on the Minecraft developer team who actually started off as mod authors. So they did like modifications for the game. If you would be interested, I'll ask them if they have any interest in talking to you.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah, the Minecraft team does really like to get involved like with their community a lot. Something that I was supposed to do this year but didn't have time to is, and I did this last year as well, is I had a Minecraft dev walk me through everything that was changed in the update. Because they always end up adding a lot more than I think, Yeah. And it's fun to like have someone who, worked on it kind of take you through the update itself.
Our space is like really homey now.
Yeah, sorry, I very much so go on autopilot when it comes to decorating.
There's like a library over here, and there's your stained glass window with the with the amethyst crystals above it, and we got a little bit of light coming in from various different places, and got a beautiful light well here, and
Here's
is our kitchen.
something that I think you're going to like and might make this space even cooler is there are chains in Minecraft, and then you can take different kinds of lanterns and like...
Ooh.
Or there's this kind that produces a lot more light.
Wow.
So
That's
here,
gorgeous.
I'll give you that. Ooh, I have to show you my infamous hanging plant because it's one of my favorite things to make in this game.
Show me.
And I did it. I don't know why, but every time I show people this, they're like, "Oh my god!" Because it's just, I don't know. Let me grab a fence. Okay, here, I'll put it over here near the kitchen. So there we go. A little hanging plant. It's just a little guy.
Oh, nice. I love it. Little track lights.
And something that's really fun to do is obviously there's wool in this game, so you can add like little carpets. But something that I tend to do in a lot of like nature themed builds is Minecraft recently added this moss block that like just looks very soft in my brain. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
So
Very
sometimes I will use moss as like the carpet instead. So
It seems appropriate for the library, don't you think?
yes. And
Area rug.
what I think is fun is I'll like mix these raised blocks with these unraised blocks just to create a little bit of variation in texture.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have something like that, except I'm going to expand it one more.
Yes.
And it makes a pretty interesting noise when you walk on it too.
Right.
Here, I'm going to go grab the cat. I'm going to go grab the cat and bring it inside.
Yeah. Cats are better indoors.
I don't know. My cat keeps trying to escape in real life. There's so many interesting things outside, like
Hello, kitty.
like grass. Like
Yes.
can never get over how interesting that grass is, you know.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what other types of furniture are you thinking for the little Hobie home?
Well, I took your couch and I made a duplicate facing it, so we have like a little living room set
Okay.
for when we have guests over.
Yes, of course.
We need a big flat screen.
Okay. Here, I think the best way to do that is to just kind of... Oh, wow. I didn't know that they did this. They separated all of the paintings? What? Sorry, this is new to me. Normally people just, you just kind of do a painting. Why can't I place this? Hello? Oh, that's huge. Here, I'm trying to see. I feel like there's one that's, this big. Let me see if I can... I might be... Oh. Maybe this might not be the move. Who knows? But I don't know. I guess the idea behind it is that you can sometimes just use a painting, and people will use paintings as the quote TV.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Though we may have to reorientate our little living room. That's so true, Soupy. The cat's just going off. Is this what you mean? I think this is like the closest I could try.
I love it.
Otherwise, there's not much else other than like just taking a black block and making a rectangle.
Yeah. Can we get HBO on this thing?
Well, actually, HBO just rebranded to Max, so I don't think we could get HBO on anything anymore. But
That's true. That's a good point.
yeah, this is like the only painting that's like this like ratio. Unfortunately, the rest are
Yeah.
kind of a little wonky, but you know,
It sort of looks like a Street Fighter. Still.
yeah, like you're playing Mortal Kombat
Yeah.
or something.
Exactly.
Which, you know, I think it adds a certain vibe. So we might have to relocate your little living room though to be more like
That's
right
fine.
here.
Yeah, because you want to watch TV, right?
Well, I mean, unless you want to watch it from here, which I think is very efficient. And also someone in chat just said if you move the sofas, you have space for a coffee table, and they're so right for that.
There you go.
And I normally just use a slab, so you can just get a slab of whatever wood like block tickles your fancy. I know you say that they're all brown, but I don't know, maybe there's a brown that you like more. You never know, you know?
Yeah, you never know.
I'm personally, I think spruce is my favorite wood type in Minecraft. It's a very there's a very long community debate about which is the best wood type. So
That seems like one of those debates that's never going to make any progress.
oh no, for sure.
It's such a kitty. Coffee table.
Wow, you're an expert. Truly, that's exactly how I would have done it. You know.
I'm slowly learning this game. I play, a couple hours every 2 weeks.
Yep. Same. That's actually a lie. That's such a lie. I am one of those people. Here's the thing: is I feel, and this is not like a diss by any means. I feel like there's a lot of Minecraft content creators who like don't actively play Minecraft that much outside of their content, which is fine. I understand the need for variation, but I'm unfortunately like my brain is so locked on this game that like I get very, I like never get bored of it, which is
Yeah.
interesting and not apparently a common experience. So
Well, the fact that you have so much in the way of options as far as what you do with your environment. Your environment is infinitely malleable. You can
Yes.
make whatever you want. That's pretty crazy.
which is like that's like it's just like playing Legos, you know? Yeah.
Like those Lego sets where you're going to build, I don't know, the Millennium Falcon or something. Those were never as interesting to me as just a big giant tub full of bricks.
Same. My friend T and I, who was my friend who like did get Legos when we were growing up, she would often just like assemble the thing once, whatever set it was.
Yeah.
And then just move on, and then destroy it and build whatever. And I think that was like the best way to go. I think that was the correct move.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm playing around. I've never seen this like decorated pot before, and I like how I can kind of make it look like a little stem, like there's little leaves growing outside of it or something. Yeah. Oh, Sick. Nice job. And I think this is a good spot for the living room with the light well and everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to add some more lights, though, because I'm a little blind. Just a little, though.
I love that I can rise up into the sky and then come back down and watch TV. Maybe we could watch Adventure Time.
I would, if I could watch Adventure Time in Minecraft, then I'd be playing Minecraft even more than I already do. Yeah. I'm not sure what else you would like to do, but I also know that you have a lot on your time plate. So whatever works good for you. If you're like, you know, needing to go do things, or if you want to keep enjoying your little Minecraft build.
Let's hang out a little bit longer, I think.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say though?
I was gonna say, is there a good spot for a satellite dish on our roof so we could get TV?
Yeah, wherever you're feeling, I guess. I don't know much about satellite placement, I'll be honest. Could you put it on top of one of the amethyst crystals? Would that work? I don't know.
I think
I really don't know.
I don't think I think we're good the way we are.
Oh no, I could try at least. I could build at least an antennae if I take iron bars. I'm serious. Wait, look. Just a little.
Oh yeah.
Just a little antennae for the TV, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what I don't know if that's what it looks like, but
I think we're gonna get way better reception now.
Yeah. They got the Starlink Elon Musk whatever it is. I don't know what it's called. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but
not in Minecraft, I haven't.
Well, I'm hoping Elon Musk doesn't touch Minecraft for my sake.
Oh dear. I feel like now I'm scared and I don't know why.
Well, at least the TV has 6G.
Yes. What?
Okay. What?
Did you feed the cat? The cat's. I feel like the cat is hungry.
I think I can give her fish.
Oh man.
And this is just like real life. My cat hangs around in my kitchen and he waits for me to feed her some smoked salmon and.
Oh, your cat eats pretty well.
Well, it's because I eat smoked salmon because I'm pescatarian, and so I always give her a little bit. Because
smoked salmon is awesome.
Yeah, I really like it, and my cats really like it. My cats used to be outdoor cats, so they're used to eating like live game. Yeah. So they don't really find a lot of joy in their little kibble, unfortunately.
Food of last resort.
Yeah. But also I don't live in an area where I can let them out anymore. So I'm like, sorry guys.
Yeah. I like smoked salmon with goat cheese.
I don't know why. I could never get into goat cheese. It just never. I think it's a texture thing for me in that case. I just realized that the couch is 3 blocks wide, but then the TV is 4. So I'm going to. This is going to be my symmetry moment. I'm gonna expand this a little bit, and then we'll move this over 1 as well. And then maybe what we'll do is we'll add in a little side table right here with this crimson stuff.
Like that?
Oh, well, I was thinking like right here. Like next to the armchair.
Oh, I see. Like
just so that the space isn't like super awkward. Here you go.
You're not going to be able to set your drink on that, though.
On this? Well,
Yeah, it's too high.
so you want to do that then?
Yeah, because you want to put some magazines down or a mint julep.
Look. Normally, I don't even know like the standard height for coffee tables or side tables.
Yeah, they're generally low.
I guess mine must just be tall then. I thought they were. Me and my $45 coffee table or side tables that I got from Goodwill,
Yeah.
like. Okay, and
this is very cool.
Yeah, I definitely like how this is looking. I am going to add a little bit more of these amethysts sort of like in the ceiling, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, I think it needs it.
Also the sound, Got to do it just for the sound alone.
Mm-hmm. That cat.
You know what? I'm glad she's amusing someone. Satsuki is a very interesting cat. She's very hyper dependent, which is very different from most cats that I've met. And I think that makes her a very interesting little companion. I'm talking about the real one, of course, not the Minecraft one, but
yes.
She had like a huge surgery way back in January. So as much as I poke fun at her little tubbiness, I'm very happy to see it because one of the original symptoms of her condition was anorexia. So she's gone through quite the good weight gain. She's a good cat. And I will let you know ahead of time. They do have orange cats in Minecraft. Here, I got you. I think if I just do that, it fixes it. I wanted to ask, if it's okay,
Yeah.
about the One of Us Foundation.
Yes.
I kind of wanted, I think a lot of people, and this isn't just me, I think this is like something that I was talking with my viewers about as well, is like, what are like some of the like goals that you have with that?
Well, so, it's brand new. And I feel like, one of the things I feel like we really need to do is develop some specificity around what the answer to that question is. And we're not there yet. But speaking from a kind of a meta standpoint, I feel like the world has really had a lot of time to explore what sorts of solutions and improvements, people in their 50s and 60s kind of think of. And maybe we don't necessarily need more of that, but maybe what people my age can be doing is figuring out how to open the door and invite people your age to the table and get your guys' ideas. So, in a very real sense, what Stacy and I both have as a meta goal is wanting to understand where, people in their 20s see as the needs and the possible solutions. For myself, mental health seems like a big one, a big area. But again, figuring out how we can bring younger minds to the table and see what we can learn from them.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think during the charity stream, I was having a little conversation with my chat about it, because I was talking to them about like, in some way it's kind of good that the sort of mission, it's in this case, I think it's kind of good that the mission statement is a little bit vaguer. And the reason for that is because if the whole thing is around, young people finding resources, everyone's resources are going to be different. Like what everyone needs is completely different. Right. So it makes sense that you guys don't have something super specific. And I wasn't saying it's like that you need to have something super specific, because I actually almost agree with the fact that it isn't. I also just like the idea of like sort of pulling younger people into the conversation. I think something that I've like come to realize. So I have become an adult very recently, in my opinion. I graduated high school 2 years ago, which is crazy to think about for me. And I'll say, as somebody who has like a lot of friends who are in their 20s or just barely starting their 20s, a lot of people, there's kind of two things that I see, and it's that, there's 20-year-olds who like want to do things but don't feel like, this is going to sound kind of sad, but like, and this does I think connect to the mental health thing, but like 20-year-olds who feel like they don't have hobbies anymore, or like they don't have things outside of their life other than work. I think it's something like almost like that sort of childhood wonder. And I think that's definitely connects to like the whole like mental health piece of it. Because like one thing I've definitely like noticed is like I have to tell my friends, I'm like they're like, oh, I really want to do this, or I really want to do this, and I'm like you should, like you want to learn how to paint? Yeah, you totally should. But then it kind of comes down to like, oh, but I'm 20 and I'm already past, can't take a class anymore. It's like it's very much so. It's very much no. I'm serious. It's like it's like an age where we're suddenly lacking so much structure, and like now we're all trying to figure out this work-life balancing. And then there's so many people so many young people who like also simultaneously like they have their idea of change and what they want to do, whether it's more for themselves or for other people, and then they have no idea how to execute it because they've never executed anything in their lives. But that doesn't make their ideas any less valuable,
Absolutely. And again, this comes into where different people are at different points in their lives, because, we really, the U.S. has really moved. I don't know what's the most polite way to say it, but
you don't have to be polite when it comes to talking about the U.S. on my channel. Don't worry.
The people my age have not done a great job of setting things up for success for the next generation. In fact, they've done a pretty terrible job, not just environmentally, but also in terms of mental health and in terms of economic opportunity.
Oh, and like life skills too. Like, I grew up in a household where learning how to be resourceful was very important for us, because we, my father worked for the government, and how the government does that thing sometimes where it just like stops paying its workers. That's a little silly, quirky thing that they do. And so I didn't realize. Sorry, it was just a notification. I didn't realize like how important some of the skills that I was learning. So like, for example, I know a lot about carpentry, and I know a lot about like things that I would originally thought were like basic skills that almost everyone is learning, how to separate your laundry, for Christ's sakes. Like all of a sudden I'm realizing that like there are so many people my age who like were never taught that. Actually, there was this. Oh, this is a really good thing to mention. There was this clip that went around on Twitter, which is always a great start. Do you know Cutie Cinderella?
I don't.
She is an amazing Twitch streamer. She organizes a lot of things, and she's a very busy woman. And she was on a podcast where she was talking to her friend about the fact that she doesn't have insurance in the US. And people like, her friend and her were kind of talking about it. And she was talking about how, well, it's complicated because, America doesn't make it very easy for people to get insurance. And then she has a house in one state, but she lives in another state, and like all these different things. And everyone, was like on her ass and was like, oh, you're an adult. Like you should know this. You should know how to do this, how to like you should know how to be an adult by now. Like just Google it, And it's like, I think that's not really, I don't think that's how things work anymore,
Yeah.
And I think that important life skills like that are like the people that like, she's like, you're right. And she's right. Like people, they don't, like adults don't teach that, like us, that stuff anymore. Like,
yeah. I tried with what I've wanted to do with my kids is make sure that they know, basic financial literacy, that they know how to do laundry, that they know how to cook, and that they know how to drive. And I didn't get all of that in with everyone, but I have had some good success with that. And it felt like when I was doing it, it felt almost transgressive, right? It felt like I was breaking the rules somehow.
Yeah.
By teaching people how to do this.
Yeah,
by teaching
exactly.
my kids how to do that. So,
and then it almost feels like transgressive for us to teach ourselves,
Yeah.
This is a very interesting little Sniff life fact, but so I never lived in a neighborhood. I used to live in the middle of the woods, and I very recently moved into a neighborhood. And I'll admit, I'm still grappling the whole like being in a place that you are supposed to take care of by yourself, like obviously I'm not living at home with my mom, like, and oh, it's interesting to me because simultaneously I've seen all these adults that are like, oh yeah, these kids just need to like go out into the world and make their money and just get a house or whatever, But then all of a sudden a young person shows up and they're taking care of their own place and their own space. And then people are very aggressive towards me, like the adults that surround me. And they look down a lot and they say things like, oh, well, I bet your dad pays for it or something like that, And it's interesting to me because it's like, how are we supposed to win? Like, where's the community aspect in that, And I was honestly a little bit shocked because, I've had neighbors, instead of offering me help, just like very aggressively assume that I need it. Which I feel like is the opposite end, because I feel like instead of, doing things for, I think sometimes doing things for people without asking can feel a little patronizing. And so
absolutely,
there's like this, it's like this moment of like, where's this line with the young people where we let them learn and don't criticize them for it, like.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly on Reddit, I've seen 1 million posts about, out of touch boomer criticism of the younger generation. And, it really, I really get that. It's like a lot of people my age are just not at all clear. And I forget sometimes too. I like, yeah.
No, it's okay. I totally get it.
I'm not super articulate about this, but yes, it's
thank you, Becky Mon, for the raid. I really appreciate it. No, I think
it's like Alex's joke about I don't know how to pay taxes or balance my checkbook, but I can tell you about color symbolism in The Great Gatsby.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And I know exactly how that feels. Because that's another thing is like that people don't, and this is like more about specifically being a content creator, is a lot of people, I always say this to people all the time. When I went to school, there was these kids that sat in my literacy class and they said, I'm not writing an essay because I'm going to become a COD YouTuber. And you know what's so interesting is, as a content creator now, do you want to know what I spend most of my day doing?
Writing essays? No.
Not necessarily writing essays, but writing business emails, writing scripts, writing, like notes and like, and it's the same thing with it's like there's these skills that you don't expect to pop up that would have been very helpful at one point or another to learn, and you never know they're gonna hit you until all of a sudden they do, and it's so like definitely the whole doing your own taxes thing, because when you're self-employed, obviously you don't get your taxes taken out of your like income from these places like Twitch and YouTube. So it is a little bit jarring to just be like, okay, how much do I owe the IRS? Right. And I'll admit that is a learning curve in and of itself. And I will definitely say I was one of those people where someone just, the first year that I like had to pay taxes while being self-employed, I was just hit so when are you going to pay your taxes? And I was like, wait, what do you mean? Like, how do I do that? Like,
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I'm going to edit your little amethyst border a little bit to be a little bit round, so it kind of wraps around our little geode.
Definitely.
Cool. Oh yes, and I have to say, Becky Mon gave us a little raid, so shout out to Becky. I appreciate her greatly. Is there like a login somewhere to pay them? I genuinely don't know. I really don't know, chat.
It's a wine cellar.
Oh, that's wonderful. You know, that's one of the things I actually have considered building in real life, because I don't know why, but even though I don't drink, the thought of brewing wine sounds so funny, but like kind of fun to me. I don't know. I joke all the time with Charles about owning a vineyard or something like that, or an orchard or something.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't know how many trees you need to legally have an orchard, but I have quite a few like apple trees already, so I feel like just a few more and then I'm already there.
I don't know that there are a lot of legal requirements to have a tree.
Yeah, I don't know either. Well, I unfortunately have to deal with some legal requirements, like my trees can't reach certain heights, but that's just because of like, fun city zoning stuff.
Yes.
You always know how that is,
I very much do, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty.
It's okay. One day, I'm just gonna go disappear, and then I'll just be with all my apple trees. So, yeah. I was gonna say though, if you're enjoying your little wine cellar idea, this is furthermore why I think you should play Stardew Valley, because it's very much so. You can like farm pretty much anything in that game. Like, it's not even just about farming crops. Like, you can brew wine. You can have like pigs and chickens and make like artisan goods. You can do honey. It's a very interesting game and very relaxing. Although some people say it's stressful. My friend Olive thinks it's very stressful and only plays it when we like do like our little competitive bingos, but okay. I think, is this even? I cannot tell. Someone just asked what the kiss kiss reward is. It's basically where I would just go, this is so cute. This feels so cringe, but I would just go, oh, thank you so much for doing kiss kiss. Yeah.
tunnel now.
I do enjoy making a tunnel or two. There is, I know that you're just barely getting, like, playing Minecraft, but there are very many different types of modifications that make this game very, very interesting. There is one that does actually add, like, trains and, like, stuff like that. I know, and I believe Charles is actually working on a project right now, because my IRL friends have a Minecraft server, and I believe they're creating a giant train track. Yeah. Create mod is very cool because it's like so there's like a lot of like tech mods for Minecraft, but Create is interesting in that it's very much so more like instead of being like super complicated, it mostly works on like gears and like water wheels and windmills and more like steampunky tech, which I think is really fun.
Oh wow, that's fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like with the mods and everything, Minecraft is just very, very flexible.
Yeah. I mean, this game can literally be anything. Like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with what a MOBA game is. Multiplayer Online Battle Arena, I think is what it stands for.
Did you say ballerina?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm sure you know Mr. Noah Picaclicks, or might have talked to him before.
Okay.
He hosted / participated in quite a bit of events that your son did. And he made a game mode within Minecraft for the last TwitchCon that was considered a MOBA. So, like, we were, like, basically, think about it, this is the same game that you're currently playing. We got to choose, like, classes, which, like, change certain stats, like our armor and our movement speed and our attack damage. And we got different weapons. And, like, depending on how much, like, money we collected, we got access to different abilities that he had, like, custom voice lines and stuff like that. It's crazy how you can literally do anything with this game. How is your tunnel going?
Well, I'm trying to connect up to the far side, and I can't tell if I just haven't gone far enough. Maybe I just haven't gone far enough.
What do you mean the far side?
I'm trying to dig. Oh, look at you.
You could just do that. Pop out for a second.
Well,
See where you are.
I didn't want to come up on the.
Oh, so what, you don't want to?
What happened?
Oh, I closed it.
Oh, I didn't want to come up in the.
Wait, can I see where you're trying to get to?
Oh, this is I'm just about exactly where I was trying to get to. I'm just a couple of blocks short.
Oh, I see. Oh yeah, somebody says there's also Vault Hunters, which is a roguelike game inside of Minecraft, which is also very cool.
Huh.
And then there's also like magic mods and stuff like that, which are very fun, and they have like their own like little systems, and yeah, the modding community has very much so kept this game alive throughout its years. I know that your son is very PvP focused, but I think the best way to put it is I'm a very progression based person when it comes to this game. Like mods that add progression and like, I don't know, like something where you like accomplish like a task in the end. I'm trying to see, where is your tunnel?
Where is my tunnel?
Yeah, what? Okay, wait. Okay, your tunnel is a little bit off, I think. Here, I'm surfacing it.
Okay.
This is where it reaches the surface right here. And your original one is right here.
Oh, I was just so close. Look at that. Oh, this is good. This is good.
Nice little tunnel.
Yeah.
I must say, this is, I do really like this amethyst build. I think it turned out really good. I
do too.
I am glad that you mentioned crystals. And see, that is why I like to do the little brainstorm thing, because you never know when, because like, I could definitely teach you how to build like a little basic house or something like that, but I don't think that's as fun.
Well, it's sort of so, I mean, that's comparatively not very imaginative.
Yeah, and I will say, I tell people this a lot, so I mentioned before that I used to be a professional Minecraft builder, and it's also why I kind of like, you know, kept saying that I was going on autopilot. But when I did that, I think one of the main reasons why I actually didn't end up enjoying it that much is because it was very monotonous. Like, it was like, build the same house over and over again, and then that's a village, you know? And then you're done. And that was kind of like not my vibe, I think. I very much so like Studio Ghibli and like other fantasy stuff. So I feel like now I definitely like to create more builds that are just almost, they're definitely just not possible, you know? But that's like part of the fun.
Yes. Fanciful. That's why I kind of want to play with like algorithmically creating levels.
I think that would be very cool. And you can also when you go into like creating like world generation stuff, you can also add in structures that will generate as well, which is pretty cool. I do think that you should take a look at Open Terrain Generator. I don't really know much about how it works, but I do know that people make their own like presets and stuff like that. And I've seen some pretty interesting things done on that.
Yeah, we're clearing out these weeds.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't sure if you were like trying to do something here. I didn't want to interrupt. Whew.
Yeah,
my water on me.
It's a little more inviting now, the front yard.
Yes. Okay, well, I unfortunately think that I'm going to have to wrap it up because I do have to, I have to continue on with this schedule today.
Yes.
But this was actually amazing.
This was a lot of fun. I love how much we were able to accomplish, and I also like how I liked coming into it really basically having no idea what we were going to do.
Oh, that's so fair, though. That's the thing that I do every time, because every time I do one of these things, I always have a completely different conversation with almost everyone, you know? Like, yeah. I think that's like sort of the fun of it. So, yeah. I am going to end my stream, and then I'll just quickly say goodbye to you individually. So I will be right back.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Temporary bye-bye.
Chat, thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate this. This was a big shout out to Technodad. Please, if you can, donate to his charity. Like, I'm so serious about that.